Slendrina, the main antagonist of the Slendrina games. She tries to kill the player who tries to escape her and find her secret. The player must avoid looking at Slendrina so they won't pass out or die, and must also avoid Slendrina's family, who also try to stop the player. The player must find keys, books, and other useful items that helps him or her escape the fury of Slendrina and her family. Slendrina's real name is Selena, but she went by her middle name, Raina. She is the daughter of Slendrina's mother, named Angeline, and her father, Slenderman, also called Simon. She's also the granddaughter of Granny and Grandpa, also called Greta, the lover of Leave, and the mother of her child, Nina. She also has a sister named Anne and is an aunt of her nephew, Luke. Once, a young woman named Greta, also known as Granny, lived in the woods with her husband, Gregory. She loved him dearly and never thought that what happened in her family would ever happen. Gregory told Greta to try not to get into labor since he wanted a home in the town so the child would be brought up around other people. Greta obeyed, but it was already too late. Their daughter, Angeline, was conceived on October 13th, 1826. Gregory was mad, but he soon had a tragic death with a horse mauling him to death. Greta was sad and stayed a widow the rest of her life. Angeline was a healthy, beautiful child. In fact, all of her family, especially her cousins Morgan, Thomas, and Edison, were jealous of her. Everyone else had pale white skin and black hair. Angeline had ruby red hair, big baby blue eyes, and fair cream skin. One day a young boy named Simon fell apart her way and they instantly became friends. Simon's house burnt down one day and Greta adopted him. Angeline and Simon started to grow feelings for one another and soon married and moved out to a big mansion near Greta's house in the forest. They had two kids, one named Anne, who looked just like Angeline, and Selena, who had pale skin and black hair like the rest of her family. Selena, which usually was called by her middle name, Raina, was a pale child, never felt emotions when Anne had many. She got bullied because of this and had to pretend like she had emotions, which made her more normal seeming. But her emotions were a show. No one mattered to her, not even her family. She even started to become bored. Her father said he was just like her when he was younger and always told her that someday, once she left the house, she would start all over again. This was the only thing she looked forward to. One day, a terrible curse fell towards her family when Angeline got bit by their golden retriever named Lucky. Anne and Raina were just 6 years old at the time. That same night, the twins and their father, Simon, were out playing in the woods. Raina then saw a figure in the sky that looked like her mother. Raina and Anne then ran back home while Simon was still standing in the woods. Angeline heard about Simon still in the woods, so Angeline, Anne, and Raina decided to prank Simon by making it look like they were dead. When poor Simon came home, he was scared to see his wife and daughters on the ground, covered in dead cow's blood. He then got deeply depressed and killed himself with a knife. When Anne and her mother found Simon's dead body, they got scared and ran outside to look for help. Raina didn't even care, almost thinking the blood and knife were amusing. Unfortunately, they couldn't look for anyone to help assist them, so they decided to go back inside to bury Simon's body. When they got home, they saw that his body moved. It wasn't there where he died. Angeline asked Raina where she put his body, and she said that it moved up the staircase. Angeline and Anne didn't believe it at first, but soon seen Simon's body on his bed, peacefully laying down. They decided to bury the body by the town and left. After the tragedy, Simon's face became pale and empty. He grew tentacles on his back and long limbs. Greta, Angeline's mom, otherwise known as Granny to her grandchildren, were sad about the tragedy and gave them all presents. Angeline got a golden brooch with diamonds and rubies encrusted in silver. Anne got a beautiful doll with diamonds and silver rings and necklaces. Granny knew that Raina wouldn't care for a toy, but she made her one anyway, a teddy bear made of old rags and coats with big black buttons for eyes. Raina instantly felt pure love and joy upon this gift, which made her family startled, yet happy to see a pale girl become bright. Raina, worried for someone to hurt her precious teddy, vowed to kill anyone who did so without her permission. At the age of 9, a girl named Mary messed around with Raina's teddy, trying to make her upset. She then told Mary to follow her to the basement of the school and killed her with a knife from the cafeteria. She picked up the corpse and placed dead Mary into the school's furnace. She burnt her clothes as well and then changed into her backup uniform. She mopped up the blood, washed her fingerprints off the weapon. Secretly, she took a syringe with sleeping medicine from the nurse's office and tranquilized her worst enemy, Clara. Raina took the knife with gloves on and gently placed it tightly into Clara's hand and dumped the bloody water in the mop bucket onto her. Raina then headed to class, not knowing that her sister Anne had seen the whole thing. The teacher worried about Mary and Clara all day and after school. Mrs. Wilson told Mary and Clara's parents, and a police investigation came into place. Mary was pronounced dead, with Clara being arrested for murder of a fellow classmate. Anne confronted Raina about this privately in her room, but promised to keep silent since Anne loved her sister so dearly that she would cry if Raina was put in prison. That's how Raina grew an evil side underneath her fake smile. The twins all grew up. Raina and Anne are now 25. Raina became a teacher at the school they went to for elementary, middle, and high. She was a beloved student, so she had a classroom on the 3rd floor all to herself. Her name carved on the student's desk was now her special desk she used for teaching. Anne became a doctor at the asylum, very close to the school in the woods. 2 months later, Anne got raped and had a child named Luke, whom Raina loved very much. One tragic day, Raina woke up to find her dead father laying on the bed in front of her. She froze to see him in his Slender Man form. Selena, many people shall die in our family. We will all meet in an inhuman form. Raina grew scared and traumatized. She began killing people. Over and over she went. She got put into the mental asylum her sister worked in because she described her father's Slender Man form. She met a handsome guy named Leave, which they had a child with, a young girl named Nina. Doctors seemed to dislike Nina, which made Leave extremely protective. All of a sudden, Angeline's beauty faded from her, saying that she saw her dead husband as a demon. She was put into the mental asylum where Anne was quite sad to see her family come there. Angeline got locked into a cage, being beaten once a day. Back in the 1800s, people who were said to have seen demons were beaten to take the evil spirits away from the person. She didn't like living with this trauma and stopped eating, dying from anorexia. Raina got upset and killed other patients at the asylum. They punished her by stretching her mouth wide open, making her scarred for life. Nina was also skinned to death by a gang of killers. Raina killed them all for her daughter's fate, and she was injected with poison by the doctors for being a serial killer. Leave never really loved Raina and used her so that they could get married once they were out of the asylum and take the family's inheritance. He had a kid with her, so she was more devoted towards him. An hour later, he died from a mysterious force, which was Slendrina's distorted face haunting him. Granny died from kidney failure. Mind you, these deaths happened all on the same day. Little Luke, Anne's son, had also died from a brain tumor the next day. The same day, Luke died. Angeline's cousins, Thomas and Edison, both had natural deaths. Anne was the only one left. Doctors did experiments on her thinking her family was possessed. They cut her skin and sewed it back together, making stitches cover her body. One of these experiments was when they brutally tore her bottom face skin off, making her completely disfigured. She took a chainsaw and killed every single person that was in the asylum. Then she died an hour later from blood loss and internal infection in her face. Slender Man was correct. They took inhuman forms when they died. And once they died, Raina, whose face became distorted, now known as Slendrina, and her mother, Angeline, now haunted all the places they knew, like their house, cellar, asylum, and school. And Simon, now called Slender Man, haunted the woods in town. Anne now wields a chainsaw and covered the bottom of her face with a black medical mask. Many people say that she is the nurse Anne, who is a creepypasta character, which Anne looks exactly like her. Hazel eyes and red hair. She also uses a chainsaw, just like Nurse Anne. Thomas and Edison haunt their house. Granny and Grandpa kidnap people in theirs, and Nina bites anyone who crosses her path. Luke's abilities are unknown at the moment. Morgan, Angeline's oldest cousin, is the only one alive and is in her 90s. She took the money from her family and inherited everything. She says that she hates her family for the monsters that they have become and won't be at rest until her family is fixed. One day, a cheerful protagonist came into the forest, taking a ride in their car. They had multiple encounters with Slendrina until they went into the castle of Slendrina's husband to copy the face of Slendrina in a book. Then the protagonist escaped quickly as the fury of the family destroyed the castle. Soon after that, the protagonist got kidnapped by Granny and Grandpa, and soon got out of Granny's house and then out of Grandpa's house and never seen them again. And that ends another episode of History Behind. Now, I must be honest with this episode. I've played every last Slendrina game, and I've beaten every last Slendrina game on the hardest difficulty in every Granny game. And I have to say that this story was completely all over the place. It seemed like it just jumped from one extreme scene to a different extreme scene to another extreme scene, and I'm just like, oh my god. Even me just reading this and doing and editing this video, I was like, this story is just all over the place. But I do see what they're trying to do, and it kind of does make sense. They're trying to make it make sense towards every last game, which they did okay. It just needs to be cleaned up a little bit more when it comes to how we jump from scene to scene. But besides that, I did enjoy the story for what it was. It is a little confusing, but again, besides that, it was an enjoyable story. And if you did enjoy this story, make sure you guys please like this video. It does help our channel out a lot. And put in the comment for whatever episode you would like to see next. Make sure you hit the bell notification so you always stay up to date when a new video is released. And with that being said, my name is Tay, the host of History Behind, and I will see you on the next episode of History Behind. Have a good night.